again, everybody, and welcome to the two-man game right here on Claibs Online. That's Matt Rocc. I'm Bob Ramsey. Glad you're with us. Matt and I were just talking. We were on the air a couple of minutes later than we were originally scheduled. I was watching the Southern Conference Championship game and had some St. Louis ties. And March Rocc is unbelievable.
It really is. I mean, there's just something about the calendar turns and then crazy shots start falling. It's just something about it.
Well, okay, so it's Chattanooga against Furman in the Southern Conference Championship game. And why do I care? Well, it's basketball, but actually it was my Billiken broadcast partner, Earl Austin Jr., who reminded me that former Billiken assistant coach Tanner Bronson is an assistant at Chattanooga. Former Billiken player Casey Hankton is a player there. And former Belleville West high school player Malachi Smith is a big player there. So I go, okay, I got rooting interest. Let's roll up our sleeves and dig in. It goes to overtime. And then one of their forwards, Jean-Baptiste, with 4 seconds left, down 2 in overtime, gets the inbound, pushes it across, they push him. They did a good job defensively, pushed him to the left sideline, maybe 2 steps across midcourt. He had to let it go. 2 guys in his face. He elevated, good form, drained it. Nothing but net ball game. Awesome. Just great moments.
It's just something about this time of year. It's just something about it just starts bringing down the most insane shots you'll ever see, and I absolutely love it. It's why things just keep getting. It's why March is always fun. It's why John Rothstein has an entire Twitter account dedicated to those kind of things. It's perfect.
Yeah, so it was fun, and I know most people around St. Louis don't care. So Southern Conference, but St. Louis ties, and by the way, Furman had been down, and it looked like it was over. And they came roaring back in regulation, took the lead in overtime. And so just crazy stuff. And when we're done here, I'll be watching the West Coast Conference semifinals. It's just a fun time for me. I love it.
Yeah, I believe it's San Francisco and Gonzaga are playing tonight, so it'll be interesting.
That's right.
To see. It'll be interesting to see if San Francisco can hang with the Zags, maybe give them something to run with here in the tournament.
There was a time early in the conference schedule where it looked like San Francisco might be the second best team in that league. Water seeps to its own level. Cream always rises. Come up with some other sayings if you like. But San Francisco's legit. And, right there with St. Mary's, who I think clearly surpassed them and beat Gonzaga just a week or so ago. But that's good basketball, really good basketball there, and I'll be watching that tonight.
Yeah, I'll be watching. I'll be focused a little bit more on some of the NBA action in tonight's slate, but nonetheless, it's just if you're a basketball fan, there's no better time of the year because obviously college basketball is hitting its stride as well, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later at the end of the show, but also over the weekend and kind of into this week, the NBA is also hitting its stride. So I mean, every time you turn on the TV now, it's there's a good chance it's one of those, like you like to say, one of those commercial-less nights because you're always flipping around because there's so many options.
That's right. So let's start like we always do with St. Louis U basketball. They won a big one against VCU, and VCU brought everything they had. They were playing for the regular season championship. The loss pushed them to third, but they had a chance to be the champ and came roaring back in the second half. They were down 21, came roaring back, and made it a great game to the finish. And Yuri Collins made a couple of plays late, offensively and defensively, and the Billikens prevailed. Not a sellout, but over 90% filled, and student section overflowing. It was a good time. It was the proper kind of atmosphere for that kind of game.
Yeah, and I thought it would. I mean, talk about kind of your plans going perfectly. You start the seniors, Brandon Courtney, right out of the gate, gets the crowd absolutely roiling with that three, and then obviously you have Martin Linson and DeAndre Jones. DeAndre Jones probably has his best game as a Billiken maybe the entire season in what he's able to do both offensively, defensively, distributing the ball, shooting the ball. In his last regular season game as a Billiken, it really was an impressive game for SLU.
Yeah, you mentioned Linson, who ended up getting cut over his right eyebrow by his own teammate, Fred Thatch. Judge Fred's just handing out punishment. Don't get in the way, even if you're on his team. No, and it's funny, if somebody would go look at the box score, you'd see DeAndre Jones, you'd go, eh. But knowing that you're against that kind of pressure defense from VCU, that the guy's not going to turn the ball over, that he's going to set up and organize the offense and make a bucket or two for you. It was exactly the kind of game the Billikens needed from him.
Yeah, it kind of worked out. Like I thought it was maybe just the senior night thing, but then it ended up really, I think, being the best minutes. Obviously, not just the best game overall we see from DeAndre Jones, but specifically, I thought it was the best minutes we saw from him and Yuri being on the court at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Him being more of that off-ball role, and he actually got some shots, kind of working off-ball from Yuri, and I thought that was something that we've been waiting to see the entire season, and we finally got it in the last regular season game, which I'm okay with because that could be something deadly, in a few minutes. Let's say, hopefully, knock on wood, round 2 of this A10 tournament, that could really change the game.
Both of DeAndre's threes, I thought, had a fun little wrinkle. In the first half, he was on the left wing, and he'd thrown it to the corner. Defender appropriately went to Jimerson. Ball comes back to DeAndre, and he turned, and the guy didn't recover and come back to him. And in my mind, it was kind of slow motion. If you look at it, go back at the highlight, it happens like that. But it was like he froze and goes, "Oh, you're not going to jump out on me?"
That's me.
Hits the three. And then in the second half, deep in the left corner, they needed the bucket, got it to him, and he knew he had to shoot it. The guy came flying at him, and he kind of ducked and leaned and shot it anyway and drained it. And 2 big threes.
Yeah, that was just it was huge. And to see him come in late like that, I mean, the fact that it was on senior night, just so perfect. Obviously, great to see him come into his own. We've been talking about, we kept wondering when these transfer guards are going to make a big impact. There was a very good chance it was going to come in a tournament game. The fact that it came, just one game before the tournament isn't surprising. It is a pretty good sign as obviously we look towards the tournament. One thing I wanted to ask you about that VCU game, which was that run and the recovery. While it's something we've seen a lot, if you just look at the numbers and things like that, it felt like more so than usual that was a run that VCU got going just because St. Louis just completely they stopped moving, the effort completely catered out, and they start getting dumb turnovers. And more so than other games where they've let teams come back because teams have gone on big scoring runs because they've started moving the ball better, and SLU has stagnated. I don't really think VCU really turned up the game that much. I thought that was just a really stark example of how bad SLU could shoot itself in the foot when they just stop doing the things they're so good at.
I think the Billikens are culpable, but I don't want to discredit VCU. No. They started out the game just with 1 or 2 guys putting pressure on, and as the game unfolded, like this is half court, all of a sudden, first there's 1 guy in the backcourt defensively, then 2, then 3, and when they made their big push, they had all 5 guys back. And what they do is they sucker you into think you're going to get numbers. We had a couple of horrific turnovers. Hey, we got past them. Now we're flying. We think we got numbers. And instead of running your offense, they sucker you into that. You try to make a pass. There's either a back tap from behind or somebody jumps into that lane and steals it. And both of those things happened a couple of times to St. Louis U. So, yeah, SLU was culpable, but VCU suckers you into that. So, discredit to one, but I don't want to completely discredit VCU because that's the way they play.
Yeah, that's completely fair, and it kind of came out on the broadcast, but you really saw there was a couple times where they beat VCU, but somehow they were able to just get kind of like a backhanded swipe. They were able to come in late and just kind of affect the play, and they were kind of able to do that not only kind of in the micro of just little plays here, but in the macro throughout. Throughout the game. I did think it was interesting you mentioned that, because I honestly thought that the most effective moments for St. Louis were when they were playing a little bit faster throughout the game. I thought whenever things slowed down, I think, and maybe that's just allowing VCU to kind of get their feet under a little bit, but I thought every time they played a little bit quicker, and maybe that's just because when you're moving the ball more and you're moving the effort part of offense is playing more, maybe it just looks like you're playing faster than those moments where it stagnates and everyone's standing around and you're watching Francisco or Martin Linson, take 4 or 5 seconds to do a post up and no one is moving around it or giving anything else. So maybe it's just an illusionary kind of thing, but it really felt like they were just moving more when they were being successful, which does make sense.
There are two keys there, and one, and I know you're not saying this, but for our viewers, you're not saying run, shoot, and holler, just try and score 150 points and run crazy. But I think not to get too deep into the semantics of it, but I think when the ball movement is quicker and players are moving to spots so the ball can move to them, I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
And I agree with that. And it has been Travis Ford has talked about it a lot across the course of the season, of the team sort of bogging down, sort of wearing concrete shoes and standing and just pass. That doesn't do anything. When you move the ball and you move without the ball, that's when it looks like they're playing fast. The ball's moving quickly, and then you get the defense can't adjust quickly enough, and you get the good shots you want. And I think you're right. I think though that is clearly, and we've seen in the last 2 games where the Billikens have done that in 2 of the last 3 games, where the Billikens have done that in one half and slowed down and couldn't duplicate it in the second half. And if they can get that for 40 minutes, and against VCU probably was 30 plus, maybe even 35 minutes, but it doesn't take VCU and a good team to make you pay when you're not playing right. If they can get it to where it's as close to 40 as possible, then they'll be tough to beat this week in DC.
Yeah, and the word that kept coming up as I was watching the VCU game was how much better the offense was when they were just simply more direct. When it was about when Yuri Collins was trying to, instead of just setting up the defense perfectly and getting his big man exactly where he wanted, when he was just saying, if they play me hard on the screen, I'm putting the ball on the floor and I'm getting as close to the rack as I can and I'm making a play from there. When we saw that specifically from Yuri in that specific situation, it opened things up and he was able to score more. But just overall, every other player on this offense, sometimes Fred Thatch doesn't make the best shooting decisions, but I like it when he makes a decision better than when he does that jump step and then wants to bail halfway through and things like that. Just when this offense plays more direct, they do things better. When it's not about, as much as I love it, this offense is not ever going to be that, prototypical, 8th grade offense of 7 passes before a shot. I just don't think that's ever going to be how this offense is. They're not going to be 7 seconds or less, but they're not going to be that kind of thing. There's a perfect middle ground in there where I think this offense really flourishes.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And the direct and drives to the basket was part of the game plan, in that the Billikens thought that the way VCU pressures the ball, and pushes out, that they thought those driving lanes were going to be there. And they thought, and it proved to be true, that if they did attack the rim, that they would get to the line. And then it's a matter of making free throws. And I think if you want to break down numbers out of a box score, it's clear that the Billikens won the game at the free throw line.
Oh God! I mean that was one of the most impressive games we've seen conference-wise. Probably the most impressive conference game from the line. That was a very good job. The way they crashed the paint, the way they were able to get shots. in fact, it's kind of insane that they got so many good calls, and yet there were still 3 or 4 ones I thought that were egregiously not called against Gibson Jimerson. But that's just another
Wasn't a good
conversation.
crew.
And so
It wasn't a good crew, but they weren't biased.
no, not at all. But it was interesting to see it kind of break finally in St. Louis's favor, and not even in a way that we've never seen this season. It just broke their way in a way that we saw consistently in non-conference play that we just never saw in conference play. And I think it was partially because of some of the calls they were getting that they haven't been, but I also thought that was, again, a more direct offense, and therefore we're going to see more free throws when they play like that.
Still, and I don't know who to talk to about it. And in Washington, D.C., I still continue to claim that Gibson Jimerson is the most disrespected leading scorer I've ever seen in college basketball.
I agree.
He just gets beat up and does not get calls. I can't figure out why. Home, away, it doesn't matter. It's crazy.
Again, it'd be one thing if he was just a jump shooter, or if he was notorious for flopping and things like that. He got his arm. I mean, he got his arm clearly slapped.
Looked like it was in a thresher on the farm.
Yeah, on that reverse layup on the backdoor drive. It was as clear as day. I'm surprised we didn't get one of those calls where he might not even seen it, but you just hear it and they just go, well, that's a whistle. I definitely just heard skin on skin. I just couldn't believe it. So hopefully maybe they have a way to solve it. Maybe that'll be an emphasis when they can get a group of crews in that they can handle for tournament time this week. We'll see. But that's kind of going to be the big question for everybody. Not just us two when it comes to watching SLU this next game.
So give me some strategic advice. I'm very good friends with the communications director at the league. Do I start with him and have him tell me to calm down? Or do I go right to Ted Hillary, who is the head of officials, who, by the way, no longer officiates game. He's retired from that. Ted Hillary was one of the great college basketball officials. Do I go right to him, grab him by the – Ted, you've got to listen to me. Or is that maybe a little –
Maybe. I mean, I think we went from should Ted be the first to should I – treat Ted like it's a 1930s Jimmy Stewart character. I think the jump there was kind of insane. There's a middle ground somewhere in there where we grab Ted and we say, listen, am I for me it would be kind of like a rationalization thing. Am I crazy here, or is this guy just not getting calls that take away the conference scoring leader? Is this guy just not getting calls that a normal player consistently playing 30 minutes and scoring pretty well in this league should be getting? Because that's a reasonable call, because I mean just that question alone, I think you get to the answer of no, he's not getting the calls he should, and from there on the question is, well, is this a him thing? Should he lobby with the officials more? Is this a Travis thing? Where? And that I think becomes a question with him of is this something that Travis has to emphasize with the officials pregame? Or
I think so.
I think maybe that'd be a great question for Ted, because I've always wondered, how do the referees want players, coaches, and whatnot handling those kind of questions, those kind of overarching wonderments about a season as it plays out and how your guys getting called.
Yeah, and now, and to be serious about it, let's say you talk to him and go, look, he's getting grabbed off the ball. You're going to miss some calls, but when he's shooting, you're going to call him. I get that, even though we both have video evidence that he doesn't always. But it's the egregious grabs and holds and hacks off the ball. Now, the officials go, okay, we can call that. But if you call that and you call it for everybody, we'll be shooting 75 free throws in a game. So finding the balance of protecting the integrity of the game's offense for both teams, protect the integrity of the offense, and so that you can still have a flow without just blowing the whistle every possession and slowing the game down and making it unwatchable. That it's a tough position for them.
Yeah, I agree it is. Because like I said, you don't want to bog down the game too much, but again, there's that's kind of the theme now. There's a middle ground somewhere.
So do you have an opinion? Have you looked at it yet? In our preview, LaSalle and St. Joe's. I kind of feel like St. Joe's has a little more talent, though LaSalle's handled them both times. So they get the Battle of Philadelphia a third time, this time in Washington. I don't know. Do you go with the team the team that's handled the other one, or is St. Joe's ready to emerge? I don't know.
Well, it's March, and now it's kind of just make ridiculous decisions based on weird axioms that you've developed over your time in watching basketball. And so, with that said, LaSalle absolutely should win this on paper, but it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a calendar year. And so, just on that, I'm going to predict this one goes kind of classic on the flip, and St. Joe's kind of edges them out on this one, which I think is good for SLU.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's probably right. I think, boy, I don't mean any disrespect because I've only seen these teams a couple of times. I kind of think there's a little bit of an edge, a toughness edge to LaSalle.
Yeah.
That might be enough for them.
But
and
again, it's not in Tom Gola though. It's got to affect the edge, right?
That's right.
You can't travel with that edge. There's just something about it. There's like, I mean, there's the mercury from the lead in the paint just doesn't affect you the same way.
Well, it's the chlorine fumes from the swimming pool underneath the floor.
But overall, I mean, when you look at how the bracket broke down, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but it is. I think we can all just be honest. I think Davidson St. Bonaventure is about the worst, combination that you could have gotten of the bracket.
How do you mean? Oh, you mean for the Billikens setting up?
Yes, because well, I mean, when you're looking at Dayton VCU at 2-3, I know they couldn't get to 6, but it's just kind of crazy how Davidson Bonaventure is just really not the 1-4 combination you wanted in front of you.
I don't want to sound like it's a false bravado or whistling past the graveyard. I think with those top 4, they all present real problems. And I think none of the 4 are perfect teams. And I think the Billikens are capable. Well, they've beaten Dayton. They've beaten VCU. They got run out of the gym against Davidson, and St. Bonaventure beat them twice.
They can beat St. Bonaventure, though. There's no doubt in my mind that with the way they've shored up certain things here since those losses to St. Bonaventure, that they undoubtedly they can beat them in a third matchup. I honestly do not know about Davidson.
Yeah, because you only get to play them once, and that's the weird thing about the unbalanced schedule. You only played them once. You played them at their home court, and they had their best offensive game. They were off the charts good. I don't think they can duplicate that at home or anywhere else. That doesn't mean they still can't win. Of course they can win. They're a good team. If you made me pick a team that I wanted the Billikens to face in the first round, I don't know if I could pick one. It sounds like coach speak now, but it really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. Honestly, the only one that I'm kind of if I could. The fact that if Fordham or George Mason somehow pulls off the upset, I'm very happy. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm very okay with that because they're really right now. Davidson is really the only team that worries me, and that saying that to the number 1 seed isn't groundbreaking. But I'm just saying, like I said, with what they've shored up, they can beat St. Bonaventure, and then obviously you put it out. They've beaten Dayton and they beat VCU. They can play with them. There's no doubt about that. It's just can they get past Davidson? Should they match up? And can they again play a much cleaner game than we have come to expect than what we saw against those 2 games against the Bonnies?
Well, Shooty will be the best defensive. He'll be the league player, the defensive player of the year. That comes out tomorrow, I believe. And there's something about him that he's earned, the mystique that he has earned that freaks guys out when they get inside. Yep. And I get it. He's going to swat it into the band if you don't have the right angles and the right attack and all those sorts of things. I think Francis Okoro keeps getting better, and backed up by Martin Linson's solid, effective clinician approach to the way the game is played. I think that gives you your best chance. But it's funny when you look at those teams. You got Oshuniyi, and each of those teams, like even with George Mason, Odoro, just a legit big. And so I think starting on Thursday there are going to be some huge battles in the league.
Yeah, A10 Tournament's going to be an absolute blast. I can't wait.
Let's switch to the NBA. I've been trying to watch a couple more games. It's been a crazy week with all the college basketball. Brooklyn lost again. They look like a mess to me as an outsider observing. You're the NBA insider. Did I see Cleveland just lost? Was that yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, they did. And I mean, the bigger loss than just losing a game is they lose Jared Allen indefinitely for the finger. That's a huge bummer. That really bummed me out. Also, earlier today, not a lot of people, I don't think, have seen this. LeBron James apparently with significant knee soreness. Not surprising when you're that old and you go off for 56 points, you're gonna have a little swelling the next day. But that's
too many jump shots.
Yeah, exactly right. It was absolutely incredible though the weekend kind of leading up into our recording tonight. Friday night, Cam Johnson goes off for a career-high 38 points against the Knicks for the Suns, and he hits a buzzer beater. That game was amazing. Tyrese Maxey goes off for 33 to help lead the Sixers in another game where Embiid and Harden looked good.
Yep.
Giannis and LaVine in that Bucks Bulls battle both go off for 30. The Pelicans beat the Jazz by 34 in what was just a weird game. Just kind of happens out of nowhere. And DeMarcus Cousins, who seemingly crops up every month or two having a nice little game for an NBA team, had 31 points for the Nuggets off the bench. And that was just Friday night. Saturday night, the Heat beat the 76ers. There was no Harden, but the Heat also beat the 76ers with 21 points from Tyler Hero, 21 points from Jimmy Butler, and then two other games in the teens from Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, who were not drafted. So the fact that they were able to hold the 76ers to 82 points while beating them up with two stars and then two undrafted guys, it just shows you the depth of the Heat that we've talked about. The Lakers also beat the Dubs that night with that 56-point game by LeBron James. And then last night, you had Suns and Bucks go deep into the fourth. The Bucks eventually won by 10. Chris Middleton had 44. DeAndre Ayton had his arguably best game of the season with 30 points. Then the Celtics and Nets, you alluded to that game. Jason Tatum had 54 points. He absolutely went off. And then the late night game, which I got to watch a chunk of, Jokic had 46, 12, and 11. So, I mean, it's just... The slate the past couple nights in the NBA has been absolutely ridiculous. Tonight, the 76ers and the Bulls played again in that incredible Eastern Conference matchups we keep getting. Joel Embiid went off for 43. DeRozan and LaVine scored in the 20s, but the 76ers then won by 15. So it's unbelievable what we're seeing every single night right now in the NBA. Just night after night, star player after star player going off. Great matchup after great matchup. It's been incredible. You
mentioned Miami winning. I think you said that was on Friday. Didn't they play again and Butler had a horrible game? Did I see that correctly?
Ooh, let me double check that because did I miss one of their games? They played... They're on a 2-game win streak right now against the 76ers, and then the Nets was the
edit that out because I'm not sure what I was looking at.
He had a bad run of games leading up to the kind
maybe
of
that's
these
what
two
I was
games.
thinking.
Yeah, that's the big one, and then also right now, again, we just can't keep getting enough matchups. We're so freaking lucky. Nuggets and Warriors are wrapping up the first quarter. It's 40-31.
Oh my! Oh my!
So, I mean, just what we're getting in the NBA, like I said, in the opening, we talked about how lucky we are with the college basketball. The NBA basketball we're getting right now is unbelievable because every night a different star stepping up. I mean, the Suns are unbelievable. The 76ers are unbelievable. The Heat, the Bulls, the Bucks. I mean, everywhere right now, this is one of the deepest, most exciting years of NBA basketball I've ever seen.
And moreover, I think the key is we're seeing these performances in great matchups. Yeah. That's what really makes it fun to me.
Yeah. This isn't Jason Tatum going off for 54. Again against the Hornets or the Orlando Magic. This is Celtics Nets. This is Suns Bucks. This is Bulls Bucks. These are the top matchups against the best 12 to 14 teams in the league. Probably a smaller scope. Really, I think I have about 10 teams covered right here. And one of those teams even got mentioned was the Lakers because LeBron went off, and they don't really actually matter in the grand scheme of things compared to all these other teams. So it's just been incredible. If you have a chance to watch late games in the West, anytime the Suns or the Nuggets on, there's a good chance, one, you're going to get just an incredible game of basketball in every facet of the game from the Suns, or you can watch one player do things that no player's ever done in Nikola Jokic. I think people don't understand because of all the injuries there. Joel Embiid doing a lot of impressive things, Steph Curry a lot of impressive things, John Morant, exciting an entire league. But for the second year in a row, Nikola Jokic is doing things that only Wilt Chamberlain has ever done on a basketball court. That's preposterous, and he's doing it with a roster around him full of guys that they're pulling off the streets because they just keep getting injured. It's just unbelievable what Jokic is doing, and that's reasonably the fourth or fifth best story every night because those are the West, and for the first 4 hours of the night, you have the Bulls, the Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics, the Nets, just murdering each other night after night, fighting for position.
Everybody knows the two-man game is on Claib's online. Mike Claiborne is our fearless leader. He is also the number one Knicks fan, or number one Lakers fan of all time. And Lakers fans, their interests have fallen into hard times. And I don't know if Mike's seen it yet. I haven't talked to him today. The HBO series, is it Winning Time?
Winning Time, yeah. They couldn't call it. It's an HBO
Showtime.
series,
You're not going to call it Showtime because of the.
They couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't call it Showtime because, well, they're not going to give away a bunch of free advertising every damn week.
So I watched the first episode. I don't know if you did.
I have not yet. No, it's on the list. It's gonna happen here in the next day or so.
Awesome.
Yes.
It is so good. John C. Reilly, who's one of our great, for the last 20 years, one of our great film actors. Maybe he's been around longer than that, 25 years. John C. Reilly is so good as Jerry Buss. And Michael O'Keefe, remember, he's had a long, terrific career started out as in Caddyshack as a kid. He plays Jack Kent Cooke, and boy, they make him look like a real ass. And Buss looks like the greatest guy. And the actors playing Kareem and Magic, and the other ones we saw, Norm Nixon. I'm telling you, you're a little young, but it takes you back to that late 70s, and even the film style, the way it's shot, and they make it look like kind of tinted, crappy old film stock. and the actors, I'm not the first one to comment on this, but the actors occasionally, especially John C. Reilly, will break the fourth wall and talk to you and tell you what's going on in this scene. I'm telling you.
I heard there was the biggest, because I did a little bit of a spoiler-free review, and the things I took away from one was that apparently they telegraphed very early that what a lot of people thought might be kind of like a one-season thing is clearly, I think, going to go 2 or 3 seasons deep because they're clearly going to give it a much longer, slower scope than I think a lot of people thought, which is really interesting to me. And second, I hear they're doing a lot of not only just like fourth wall breaking with the actors, but they're using classic sports things like chyrons to kind of. I heard at one point Donald Sterling came on screen and it slashed across second worst Donald of the 80s.
Yeah.
See, that kind of stuff is perfect. I love Adam McKay so much. I could not be more excited. And on a more interesting thing, it's kind of crazy to me that on Apple is actually going to be coming out with, I think this summer, Magic Johnson's answer to the Bulls documentary that I'm blanking on right now.
Yeah.
Why am I blanking on the name of the Bulls documentary? But the one that came out during COVID 2 years ago. That Bulls documentary, we're getting the Magic Johnson Lakers version of that documentary from Apple here this summer. So and I think there's some people who think that maybe that Magic also kind of got that going, not only because of Jordan's thing, but also because he knew that the HBO kind of dramatization of his story was going to be coming out. So I'm really excited that we're going to get not only just kind of this crazy, really fanciful, look at what had happened, but also the really hardcore from the perspective of the players, how they want to tell their story, documentary style. I mean, we are living in one of the best times to be a sports fan with the kind of content and behind the scenes stuff we're getting. I mean, we didn't know that there were cameras following Jordan around there in the late 90s, but 20 years later, we're blessed with one of the greatest documentaries ever
of all time. And then my only concern would be sometimes people wanting to rush to tell their version of the story. How objective is it? The Bulls felt very objective. So hopefully Magic and whoever his directors and producers are hold them to some level of objectivity while allowing him to tell him his version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I can't wait. I'm going to knock out that first episode of
Winning Time.
Winning Time this weekend, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next episode of the show.
I recommend it for anybody, especially somebody who's a fan of the Lakers and sort of lived through Showtime, and anybody who wants a look at perhaps a version of what it was like. It's really fun. At the very least, it's really fun.
Absolutely.
So what are we looking for midweek here from the NBA?
I mean, really, it's just it's not really. It's gonna. I mean, I shouldn't. I was gonna say it's not really gonna slow down. Just by the nature of how incredible this past weekend was, it's going to slow down. Some of those matchups can't keep happening, and that's kind of what we're gonna lose. So the big thing I want to highlight tomorrow night. One thing that I've done a bad job with, I think, is giving credit to Tyronn Lue and the Clippers for what they've been able to do without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But when you lose those guys, you're honestly gonna lose, some of the shine. But they're still a winning, solid basketball team, and Tyronn Lue really deserves some credit for doing one of the most incredible coaching jobs in the NBA. Tomorrow night they play the Warriors, so it's actually, I think, going to be an interesting matchup because the Warriors are definitely reeling a little bit. They're going to get Draymond back, but right now the team just isn't clicking at all. And so, can you get back on the winning streak against not one of the better teams in the West and the Clippers? But heck, the Clippers are so well coached; they could easily keep that Warriors kind of struggles rolling, and that could be a problem. And then on Wednesday, early game, Suns and the Heat, we get a little bit of an East-West Coast cross, maybe even a preview of what we'll see in the NBA Finals. It's certainly not a long shot chance for that to happen, so that's going to be a good one right there. We've gotten so many matchups lately in the West, so many matchups lately in the East, but those kind of potential previews of what we might see in the Finals, we haven't seen a lot of those, so we'll get one of those right there Wednesday early in the evening as the Suns and the Heat match up. It's going to be good.
So I think we'll probably be able to go Thursday evening with two-man game, and we'll take a look at hopefully a Billiken victory, and then preview what the game will be. And if it is a Billiken victory, and they'll play St. Bonaventure, and we'll preview that. And you've seen those games, and you've been around Billiken practice, so we can maybe try and do a little X's and O's from.
I'm going to watch them again. If they're playing the Bonnies, I'm watching those damn games again.
Yep. So we'll have that for everybody on hopefully on Thursday night. Rocc, good visit. Appreciate it. And we'll get back together again and keep talking hoops.
Have a safe trip to D.C., Rammer.
Thanks, buddy. It's the two-man game right here on Claves Online. That's Matt Rocc. I'm Bob Ramsey. Good night. See you Thursday.
St. Louis Acura is the only Acura dealer in the nation to win the Precision Team Award for 30 years. How do we do it? By making you, our customers, our number one priority. As others increase their fees and take advantage of limited inventory, we keep our prices low because we remain committed to becoming better than ever and treating you as we want to be treated. We want you coming back and sending your friends and family to a veteran-owned, family-based business you can trust. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.